who J.K. Rowling is, and most of us have probably read, the Harry Potter series and maybe that other series that I can't remember the name of, but it was Inspector something, and it was written under a pseudonym. Robert something. But we all know her, and we at least, know of her. If you haven't read any of the books, you at least know of her. And a large majority of this generation's population loved her at some point, especially, around 2001 to 2011, when, the films were really taking off and there was so much hype around the last few films, especially around the end of the 2009, 2010. But yeah, she was such a cultural icon to a lot of people not so long ago. So it's very weird to see someone who was idolized by the masses now to be seemingly torn down by a lot of people who were huge fans of her in the beginning. And she's both a case study of, one, cancel culture in general, and two, just exactly what not to do when you are a person with a platform as big as hers online, or just in general, but especially online. And she kind of ticked all the boxes to fuck herself over, and she caused her own downfall. It's not cancel culture has brought her down, she brought them to her and basically, kicked the chair out from under her. She was destined to fall with the way she was acting. So, the Harry Potter audience is a huge fandom with a huge variety, but it also definitely had a large appeal in certain communities, POC communities, LGBT communities. It definitely had a very large diversity in the community, very, very large. Unlike many other similar things, Lord of the Rings never really had true, it had true diversity, but not as diverse. It's probably one of the most diverse franchises compared to, Star Wars, as I said, Lord of the Rings, Pirates of the Caribbean. It has the most diverse subculture and fandom around it. And because of this, there were so many different people listening to, reading, and just engaged in, the sayings and doings of J.K. Rowling. And this is what spiraled her downfall, because there were so many ears attuned to different things, that when J.K. Rowling did what she shouldn't have done, which definitely was her own fault, because I think it's undeniable now that compared to a lot of other people who have been sort of victims of cancel culture, where it's something they did years and years ago, and it's not, of course it was a wrong thing to do, but, it's not entirely relevant, or, it's not massively problematic. It was definitely offensive, but, not seriously damaging. J.K. Rowling, is actually and actively kind of a bigot, and, it's not like she said something transphobic 7 years ago and never said it again. For like nearly 2 decades now, she's been consistently, using a massive million-person platform to advocate transphobia and among other things. But that's probably what I think that was the first thing that really got her kicked down, was her sort of devaluation and unwillingness to recognise trans people as valid. I said that already. But basically, she used her platform to preach this obscene stuff, and because there were so many attuned ears listening, and there used to be a huge trans community fan base of Harry Potter, just because I think inside them, because Harry Potter was kind of the misfit who found, home in a misfit world, lots of people of those communities, not saying they are misfits, but they would feel like misfits, and found themselves, finding solidarity in that book series, and that's why there was such a huge community. But anyway, there was a huge community of trans people reading these books, and when they heard out that she was being transphobic, they stopped reading, and then that spread, and then they used their platform, which was less than 1% of hers, to show that she's using a massive platform to devalue these people. and that message spread, and lots of people found out that she wasn't too great, and a very large population of her community were people she didn't care about and didn't even consider as validly existing. So she brought about her own downfall by publicizing with a massive platform her transphobic and bigoted views. That is basically what. And the fact that she maybe, if she hadn't posted this stuff but still believed in it, of course, I'm sure she still would be, a cultural icon still if she had never publicised this, which I'm sure there are a lot of people in high places and celebrities who have these views and know not to express them. And of course, it's wrong to just have them, but not expressing them keeps them in the spotlight. But also the fact that she herself had such a large population audience of these people, and they were able to turn around from their love of this author to see that she doesn't even value them. She brought about her own downfall, and I think if she hadn't had such a large trans audience, which she did have, if she didn't have that, I'm sure she would not have fallen down as much as she did. But I think it was just a perfect mix of her appeal to that audience and her bigotry against it that brought J.K. Rowling down. That's what happened to her, and it's not like other cases of cancel culture where they're cancelled for something completely, a joke 17 years ago that, they don't even agree with anymore and they know was heinous to say. She has been continually transphobic and bigoted, and she's very weird. I don't want to call her a bitch, but she really seems like a bitch. And I used to love her. I loved Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling. So that's funny for me to say, but she definitely is someone who, should have educated herself and kept her mouth shut instead of, preaching against a large majority of her audience. So yeah, that's how J.K. Rowling brought about her own downfall, and how it's not exactly a good example of cancel culture, which mainstream media that doesn't really understand how the online communities work are using her as a very an example, because many mainstream people would know her, but that's not exactly right, because she's more damaging because of her platform and her sternness in her ideals, basically.